Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. And before we do get into today's first story, I just want to give you a warning that there's mentions of childhood sexual abuse. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and down in the timeline below. And this story went across a couple of different subreddits, and it's got a couple of abbreviations in there as well, which I mentioned beforehand. One is HLF, which is high libido female, and LLM, low libido male. And the first post was, "What a pickle, where to start? This may be long, so bear with me. I, 32, HLF, high libido female, have been with my husband, 33, low libido male, for 11 years and married for 3. We did not have sex for the first 5 years of our relationship. I didn't interrogate it nearly as much as I should. He suffered from significant mental health problems. We were long distance and I loved him very much. I also think on some level it fed into my own deeply held belief that I wasn't worth a sexual relationship. I didn't have the right to expect that for myself. We did start having very occasional sex. It was often awkward, though occasionally nice. I had a major wobble before our wedding when I felt strongly attracted to someone else, but my husband was so dependent on me and I loved him very much, so I didn't see any way that I could ever leave the relationship. I doubled down and was very happy to have stayed with him because there is so much about our marriage that is wonderful. However, trying to conceive has really put a new focus on things. I've been having to, as well as being husband's emotional, logistical, everything support, make sex happen. We went from no sex for months to 2 to 3 times a month. It became very clear to me that things were not as they should be. Him fucking me felt the entire time like he was trying to work something out and was battling with himself. In darker moments, I told myself he must be gay or that I must be repulsive. Things reached a head when one month I decided not to initiate when I was ovulating. He did nothing. I felt so angry that he would just let this pass by, when he knew how much it meant to me and how disappointed I was every month when my period came. We had a very long discussion and he revealed to me that around 18 months ago, he started recovering memories of having been sexually abused as a child. So now at least there are some answers, but also a huge amount of pain for him. The horrible, miserable thing is that now that I know this, all I feel is a sense of exhaustion. This is something else I feel like I have to work him through. My husband is not someone who gets things done. He has to be pushed into everything. Now I look back at our relationship, I realize the ways in which I have been the driving force in every one of our decisions or moves as a couple. My heart breaks for him as a human that I love, but I have no idea if I have the willingness or strength to work through this with him. I have no idea if he's going to be able to overcome this problem and how long I can wait. I want children, which I do, very badly. There is an added complicating factor. We had a discussion about me potentially sleeping with other people. Although we did not confirm this in an open way, he essentially told me that I could do what I needed to and he would forgive me. I started looking without being completely upfront for someone, but I found a lot more than I intended to. I started a mostly online affair with. Also in a dead bedroom, he told me he felt the same way for me. I have no idea if that was bullshit or not, but I do know that it was intense and my feelings were utterly sincere. He made me happier than I have been since. I don't even remember. We met up for one day, and from my perspective, it was wonderful. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to sleep with him as I thought my hang-ups would be too much. Yet within mere moments, I'd already decided I wanted, and I did it completely wholeheartedly. I was able to be my complete, authentic, passionate self, and even there were moments where my inexperience showed. Sure there were. I loved expressing myself, feeling desired and feeling special. He said he felt the same way. We had talked before and during about the potential of being together long term. However, he decided, entirely rationally I'm sure, that in the cold light of day it couldn't work. I know he was right. Yet my initial feeling was that I must have been disappointing, that I'm disgusting, etc, etc. I'd never had any cause to doubt his sincerity before, and now I doubt it entirely. I suppose the real point, however, is, what kind of marriage have I been in that makes me feel like I'm unworthy of love and sex? I told my husband everything. I still love him very, very much, and I have a huge amount of respect for the wonderful person he is. He was his characteristic, kind, loving, generous self, although I know it has hurt him a great deal. I feel utterly dreadful. I'm feeling the most horrendous cocktail of emotions: guilt, confusion, despair, self-loathing, and loss. I miss the man I slept with dreadfully, and I have no way of knowing if he feels the same. And I know that I'm hurting my husband, who I love, with my inability to decide or work through these issues. I don't think I want to stay married, but how am I supposed to trust any of these feelings? I feel warmth and gratitude that husband doesn't hate me for cheating on him, but can warmth and gratitude sustain me? Is what I want for him to hate me? Thank you if you stayed with me to the end of this hot little potato of misery and confusion. If you have any useful insights, I'd love to hear them. And in the comments, Manly Man says, please do not have a child with your husband. You are in a caregiver relationship with your husband and not a true partnership. That's also why you are exhausted. Opie responded and says, I've definitely put a pause on trying to conceive. I guess my question is, can this change? Can he change? How long am I willing to wait for him to do this? NT Engineer says that cheating aside, the biggest hint in what you should do comes from this statement in my opinion, and quotes, I fell in love with a person I was having a mostly online affair with. It goes on to say, if you fell in love with a person over the internet, regardless if you ever meet up with him and having sex, this means you are emotionally yearning to be in love and your husband isn't fulfilling that need anymore. In addition, your husband isn't fulfilling your physical needs either. Do not have a child with your husband. Having a child into a dead bedroom is a terrible, terrible decision. Thank whomever you think that it didn't happen. Instead, exit the marriage, get a divorce, and find yourself someone you can be in love with and who gives you what you need physically and wants kids. In my opinion, it seems more likely that you've stayed with your husband out of obligation and as a caregiver than anything else. OP then comes in with an update and says, I posted last week context in my history about my low libido husband admitting he had been sexually abused, my affair and extremely low feelings of self-worth. The general consensus was that I ought to end the marriage and start again. The past week I have been growing more and more certain that our marriage is over. I feel unbelievably sad and lonely. I've started being completely upfront about everything. My lovely, lovely husband held me last night, and when I cried and told him how scared I was of losing him, he promised me that I wouldn't lose him no matter what. I've been feeling more and more resolute, and this morning I'm having a bit of a wobble. I was making coffee and I looked at the pot he had bought me. Boring backstory, but it just reminded me of how much he loves me and how wonderful he is in some ways. I guess my question is there any way to get past where we are now? I'm not attracted to him. I'm worn down. I've been his carer for so long. I am, in so many ways, itching to be free. But I also love him very much and I am frightened. I'm worried that if I don't give things my best shot, I will live to regret ending a marriage with a man who loves me as much as I know he does. Yet I also know that the odds are stacked so high against us. What if he can never get past his abuse? What if I never again experience any attraction to him? What if having children causes a relapse in his mental health and I'm left carrying all this weight once more? I guess I'm still feeling very confused and could do with some more guidance. Has anyone been where I am and made it work? Or are these terrible pangs just a natural part of the process? Opie then asked another subreddit saying, how am I supposed to leave my best friend? And says, things are bad. I, 32 female, am miserable. We have had many years of dead bedroom due to I have recently discovered his history of sexual abuse. He also has significant mental health problems and I have had to be his carer for a long time. On the back of feeling deeply unhappy and unwanted, I had an affair that was meant to be purely sexual but became romantic. That affair is over. I've come clean and we're now able to be warm and open with each other again. The difficulty is that I just don't know if I can ever feel romantically inclined towards him ever again. My feelings have become mired in years of pain and rejection, and our dynamic is completely off. Yet at the same time, he is so loving and such a wonderful person. We enjoy each other's company. We have a lovely home together. I'm increasingly thinking that this marriage will not make me happy in the long term, although I'm forcing myself to sit with these feelings for a while. But I am so utterly miserable when I consider either future. A sexless, passionless life with a man who I love very much but who cannot provoke those feelings within me, or a devastating breakup and a life of uncertainty, losing my home and causing pain to all around me. Another hideous aspect to all of this is the idea of having children. Trying to conceive is what really brought out issues to the fore. And now is clearly not the time for he and I to continue trying. Yet, am I throwing away my chance to be a parent with someone who loves me if I leave him? This is what my mother keeps unhelpfully suggesting. What if I never meet anyone else who loves me like this, or who would make such a caring father? I know it's not a good reason to stay in a marriage, but it frightens me. I feel very frightened about the future and stuck in this place of limbo. I'm someone who likes to make decisions, act and try to forge my own happiness, but I feel utterly paralyzed. I know no one here has the answers, but I'm wondering if there are any relevant experiences of divorcing a partner you really, truly love. Around a month later, OP updates again and says, "We have decided to take a break and I'm moving out today." I feel so sad and panicked. I don't know if it's the beginning of the end or the chance to build a fresh start. I suppose it's something, which has to be better than limbo. Next update around 20 or so days later and says, "My husband and I have decided upon an open marriage while he works through his trauma. We think there is more than enough in our marriage to make it worth saving, and he eventually was the one to suggest that me respectfully and openly seeing other people might take the pressure off both of us while we work through the hard stuff." I wasn't sure about it all, but I just met up with a potential partner and I feel amazing. I feel that chemistry is really special and not really something I've experienced before. How have people in here navigated an open marriage in the context of a dead bedroom? I really want to explore this part of myself, but I want to do it in a way that is healthy and doesn't lead husband and I down the dark path we were on before. Around 10 to 15 days later, this weekend I slept with a guy I met up with. My husband and I had a good talk earlier in the week, and as he is away and it wouldn't eat into our together time, I decided to go for it. It was a really wonderful experience. The other guy showed me a lot of new things and made me feel so desired. He was highly complimentary and made it very clear he'd like to see me again. I found it quite healing. Not due to the issues with my husband, but the feelings of rejection I had since the man I had an affair with ended things. Not having to feel guilty about it and not having confusing romantic feelings also enriched the experience. I would also say it's made me appreciate my husband more. He's coming home tomorrow and we have lots of plans this week. The pressure feels like it has released a bit and he can take some time to heal without worrying about continually feeling like he is hurting me. I'm not pretending this is some fix-all situation and we're going to need to keep talking and evaluating, but I do feel hopeful. Update about a month and a half later. Well, maybe some of you saw this coming. I'm not sure I did, but this is where we are now. Well, I slept with a guy I was seeing every weekend for the 8 weeks I was away from home. It was incredible in every way. I told myself that it was just sex, but it very quickly was not. However, I returned home absolutely determined to make things work with my husband. He'd been so angry about the affair and I was keen to make it up to him. The first few weeks before Christmas were okay. I worked very hard to try and make everything better and slipped back into carer mode. He was not at all well, however, and had a number of dissociative episodes. I just kept telling myself I could make it better and we could work on it. I told myself to endure. In the meantime, the other guy and I were meeting up for walks as friends. All we wanted to do all the time was rip each other's clothes off. He told me he was seeing someone else and I tried to be happy for him, but I felt like I'd been slapped in the face. The breaking point for me was on New Year's Day. Husband got a little drunk and initiated sex. It was absolutely fine and he was showing some more enthusiasm, but as soon as he was done, without me having finished up, he got up, walked out the room and didn't come back. I lay there for 20 minutes waiting. He didn't return. I felt totally shit and I had no idea how to bring this up with him, given how fraught sex is for him already due to the abuse. I brought it up finally 2 days later. He said he has been so disassociated afterwards, he didn't even remember doing that. I just knew I couldn't spend the rest of my life experiencing sex this way, or experiencing a marriage this way. I started getting panicky again, as I had been back when I'd been thinking of ending the marriage in September post-affair. I realized that I'd slipped back into carer mode and that it was overwhelming me again. My husband, the good-hearted, darling man that he is, suggested I go to my parents for the week as our bathroom was out of action anyway. I went there and slowly found myself able to sleep again, no longer waking up and bursting into panicked tears. I realized just how unwell I was making myself. I returned home at the end of the week and my husband told me he couldn't bear to see me so unhappy anymore and that he does not feel well enough to be in a full-time marriage. We made a decision that he would move out for 6 months. We discussed that in that time, I'm not going to be waiting for him. I'll be living my life and seeing where it takes me. It's been so heartbreaking in so many ways. Him crying to me that he wanted us to grow old together. But I also feel such a sense of relief. I didn't realize the full extent of what living with someone with such extreme mental health problems was doing to me. I told the other guy my husband was moving out. He finished with the person he was seeing. I've been seeing him a lot and he says he loves me. The sex is incredible in every way. Who knew I was into BDSM? And he's also just a lovely person to spend time with, and we're compatible in ways I just didn't expect. There's no going back for my marriage. It's sad, but loving someone isn't enough. I asked my husband during one of our teary sessions how two people who love each other as much as we do can't make each other happy. He answered quite simply, because one of us isn't well enough. I would honestly have continued to sacrifice my own happiness if I thought it made him better, but I have realized it doesn't, and I can't. In fact, seeing my unhappiness and frustration was making him feel worse about himself. I feel a strange mixture of joy as I fall in love with someone new, and with myself in my own body, and deep sorry for my husband and my marriage. But I know that I needed more from life, so here we are. Sorry to those of you who are hoping open marriage might be the answer. It wasn't for me, but it may be for others. If sex was the only issue in our relationship, it may have solved it. Update 7, which is around 5 or 6 months later, and says, I'm writing a very brief update because I feel like it is disingenuous to leave that post as the final word. There's no need to delve too deeply into the details now. My husband moved back home. I'm still with my boyfriend and very much in love and having incredible sex, but my marriage isn't over. We seem to have settled, with full permission and support, into an ethical and well-balanced situation where my husband and I share the home, are each other's best friends and supports, but we have removed the pressure of any kind of sexual relationship. I spend around half the time with each of my partners, though slightly more at home through necessity. My husband and I are so much closer again and really enjoying each other's company. I'm happy in my own skin for the first time ever. Sometimes I don't quite know how I got so lucky for it to work out this way. There are still so many complications and I don't know how feasible this is long term. I'm still thinking about the children issue and what this may mean for us. I've also stopped trying to find definitive answers. It's too complicated. I'm doing what makes me happy, and it seems to be making both my husband and my boyfriend happy too. I've done enough navel gazing for a lifetime. I'm taking things as they come. P.S. I don't give a flying toss about the guy I had a brief dalliance with now. Just an indication of how unhappy I was, I guess. And final update, around 5 months later again, and says, I was idly scrolling through Reddit today and decided to take a look at this alt. I realized how disingenuous it was to leave the last update as the final word. Didn't they say that on the last one? For the best part of the year, we tried. My husband and I treated each other with huge amounts of love and respect, but we simply couldn't overcome the challenges we faced. During this year, husband saw more people than I did. It was a very useful experience for him, and he has commented on how it gave him a base to start trying to heal. But it was too late for us. The last time we had sex, he came and then immediately left the room. I was left lying alone in bed. I cried. I talked about it to him later, and he told me he didn't remember as he completely disassociated. I realized the damage it was doing to us both and swore I would never sleep with him again, even supposing the opportunity arose. He moved out for a bit, but we missed each other. He moved back in. We muddled along for a while, me seeing my boyfriend one evening and one weekend night a week. But the simple fact is that my boyfriend and I had fallen completely and utterly in love with each other, and I felt more and more like my real life. Slowly but almost naturally, my husband and I were slowly detaching. We were just trying to find the least painful way to break up. When the decision came, we almost didn't even need to articulate it. We walked the dog together, discussed him moving back out permanently, and promised we'd always love and care for each other. My husband and I have now separated for nearly 18 months, and my boyfriend and I are exclusive. Ex and I are still best friends and talk regularly. Boyfriend and I are dizzyingly in love, and our sex life is honestly transcendental. I have real trouble with that word. It's so lovely to have a partner who is present with you. We talk about sex as our hobby as we take it so seriously. My ex wanted to be what I needed but couldn't. He's doing well and has managed to have a few partners with whom he could try and work stuff out. I just couldn't be that person. Life is short, be in love, be happy. Now there's just so much to unpack in one story there. From the childhood abuse to the affair, to the open relationship and, the constant back and forth with it all. Being a carer, and instead of the moving in and out the house and all this kind of stuff going on, I feel like, and I'm not sure if this is going to sound harsh or not, I feel like divorce should have been very early on. I know that's easy for me to say, but what a mess. And I know this is not fair, but I'm trying to imagine it from the guy that she met online, her current partner, and they've met up for the first time and they're talking about their lives and what it's all about. And hopefully she was being honest to him about it. And I couldn't imagine hearing all that. This is what's going on in your life. I'd be like, nah, this ain't for me, I'm afraid. There's too much shit going on there. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for spending your time with me today. Getting involved in the stories you'll love. Support time always means the absolute world. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause you just don't care. House, field, if we talking to a uniform.